Cool. Oh, wow.
Hooray!
Holy crap, we're already live. Usually there's like a delay.
That is interesting. Because there is usually a delay. Yeah, that just like happened.
Right? Like, I mean, this is not a complaint. It's like a, whoa, okay, cool. Well,
yeah.
For anybody who's watching, if you've never seen this before, this is we try to do it monthly, Storytellers Happy Hour. So the regulars are Teehee and myself, and we basically imbibe. I chose, I don't know if anyone's had this before, Chelada. I'm a big fan of Modelo's Chelada. And so we imbibe, and then Teehee will explain how we do everything else. And then you also get to hear us basically chatter back and forth because we've known each other, oh my God, like almost 15 years. So,
right? Yeah, I actually thought about that yesterday of like, because we met in grad school. So it was a long time ago. It'll be very close to 15 years this coming summer. But now I feel like I'm at that age where I don't want to say how long I've known people.
I know. I have friends that it's like every time we do like a presentation together or whatever, and people are like, because they don't realize. So let me back up. So most people know me more around like literary and for doing like, like my editing work, which just blows my mind. And like, like for my own writing, that's really more, I mean, it's commercial, but it's also, definitely has a serious literary bent to it, So when they realize I have all these friends who are like huge, in their own right, in their own genres, and but their reputation, I guess you could say, or their brand is a lot different than mine. They're like, how do you two know each other? And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, how could we not know each other? We've been around for like 25 years or, whatever. Right. And then it's like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I feel you on the, like, I don't really want to admit how long I've known someone. Mm-hmm.
I had a really funny one recently. So I just started a full-time job. For most of 2024, I was in between jobs, which was lovely. I really liked not having to work every day. It was, I miss it. I will return to that state of being one day. But for now, I'm working. But so I was talking actually about my book with my boss and like the different blurbs that I got from people.
Oh, okay, the first one, not the upcoming one. Okay.
No, I was talking about the upcoming one, and I was like, because I was explaining to like my new boss, because I was like, I don't know if she knows these people, so let me just like say a little bit about their backgrounds. And so I was like, oh, this person who's like a little bit academic and blah, blah, blah. And my boss was like, wait a second. It just said her name like right out loud. And I was like, that's exactly who that is. And she was like, how do you know this person that I went to grad school with? And I was like, they're a deep family friend of ours. Like I grew up around her. She's like an auntie. Like,
right?
We were like, what the crap? Small world. Like they were good friends in grad school, but she was my auntie basically.
That is awesome. Silly. Oh yeah, no, that happens like all the time. Like so we're gonna start a Kickstarter for a magical realism anthology, and it's co-edited with me and Jonathan Mayberry, who's an amazing person, and B, a big New York Times best-selling, multi-award winning, he's published across multiple genres, author. And we were talking about like nowadays when you do an anthology, especially if you're going to do a Kickstarter, you want to have, some big names, lined up front, right? So I was like, it turned out we both know Jamie Ford, and we both know Luis Urrera, and we both, like, there are several, so we, approach those. And then I was like, well, I know a lot of really, more literary, just because of my, my background. So I was like, I can approach, like, Wally Lamb and Percival Everett, and like I'm naming these people. He's like, how the hell do you know these people? And I'm like, well, Wally Lamb was a guest speaker at my grad school and like guest taught one of our workshops, and like but I don't know if they actually write magical realism, but we can ask, and of course they don't. So, but I'm like, but they're all lovely people. Like, they're all wonderful, and they've all been super kind, and like, we've stayed in touch all these years and all that kind of stuff. But oh yeah, totally, like, same thing, And then you feel like dorky mentioning like, hey, I could approach so and so, because at least sometimes I feel like I'm bragging, but like I don't mean it as a brag. I'm just saying like they might actually enjoy this, right? And be interested. So anyway.
Yeah. It is a small world out there. And totally. I feel like it keeps getting smaller. But it's actually a good thing, though, I think. I think the more that we all actually do know each other, the better off we all are.
Oh, yeah. Well, because the more, in theory, the more we'll bother to actually understand one another. And,
exactly.
Why we choose to do the things we do. So, yeah, I'm totally there with you. So,
yeah.
All right.
Hashtag smaller world. Yeah. So let's explain so we play this little game on a Storyteller Happy Hour where we are going to pull prompts. Usually we pull prompts from this deck, which shout out to my friend Jenny. It comes from The Moth, if people know about The Moth. It's still happening in New York City, but they kind of started this whole craze of oral storytelling many years ago when I was still in Brooklyn. And I like attended a few, did some things. I had my own storytelling show. But yeah, so the idea is that we're just going to tell impromptu stories. We normally get a prompt from there, but because we're so close to the end of the year, and this is like holiday time and winter time, I came up with my own prompt, which maybe will be fun. And if we don't want to do it, then we can scrap it and do something else.
It'll be fun. No question.
Okay, yeah. All right. Holiday travel as a prompt for a story.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because a lot of folks are traveling right now, and holiday travel stories could be really crazy.
That's true. Okay.
I might have a couple. I'm trying to think of like, because I have a good one from childhood, but like, I don't know. I think, knock on wood, I generally have good luck traveling when it comes to like airplanes and stuff like that. Let me knock on wood again. But I also do things like I never check a bag. I always have it like in the overhead compartment because I don't want a bag to get lost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can come up with something. A lot of the stuff from my childhood, I'm not sure if it was actually holiday travel, but like it was like family based travel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I actually have like a couple. We can do more than one.
Okay.
I have one good one I want to say for the end though.
Okay.
But I'll start, I guess. So we met in grad school. The first time that I ever visited New York was coming to grad school. Our grad school was in Connecticut. And I had never been to New York City. I was living in the South for a long time.
Mhm.
So I remember I get to New York City, I'm walking around the streets of Manhattan, and like an idiot Southerner, I say hello to everyone because like in rural South Georgia, you say hello to everyone you cross on the street. So like
Oh,
people
yeah.
thought that I was literally
Like
like
crazy.
autistic or something. Yeah, because I was like, hi, 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 and like
Uh,
very much not from New York at all. It stuck out like a sore thumb. It was snowing a whole bunch, and I grew up with snow, so I was like used to it and like everything like that. But it just kept snowing and kept snowing. I was staying with a friend of mine in Jersey City, and I was like, yeah, tomorrow I have to take a train up to Connecticut from like New York City, but that shouldn't be that bad. I didn't understand my New York geography at that point because I hadn't lived there. So she
uh-huh.
lived in Jersey City, which I thought was like on the same landmass as Manhattan. And I was like, oh, you have like a PATH train to get to Manhattan. So it's like, it's connected, it's fine. When I say it was like snowing, what I didn't realize is it was a blizzard.
Oh.
It was literally a blizzard. So I was like, oh yeah, like I will, like tomorrow morning I gotta wake up and do this or whatever. And she's like, no, 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 it's a blizzard. They're shutting down all like trains and planes and automobiles like right now. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Like, let me like I'm like slowly packing. And I'm like, yeah, I can leave in like an hour and get to like Grand Central because that's like what, one or two subway stops. And she was like, no, we're in a different state. Like you have to go under a river and everything is shutting down. So you just like throw stuff. I didn't have time actually to do laundry because
Oh
of
boy.
this hurry. So then I make it. I take the train and I get out, and it's just snow everywhere in Manhattan. And but the New York subway trains were stopped, so I made it to like 33rd Street or whatever, and then had to walk to Grand Central.
Mhm.
Outside, I was the only human in like Midtown Manhattan,
Yeah, that sounds
just
right.
carrying my duffel bag. Yeah, completely like oblivious that this was at all some sort of natural disaster, which is a problem that I have in life of
Mm.
not giving natural disasters the way they deserve. So I'm like, this is fine. I haven't seen a human in 10 blocks, but that's okay. I'm only like in the center of the world. There should be people around. And I finally make it. And so I end up showing up for grad school for my very first residency, which is the first time I met you,
Mm.
with completely dirty clothes. And I showed up like, I
Wait, I
think
remember
10
this.
hours early. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because it was like, where can I get my laundry done? And I'm like,
Yeah, they were like, no, you can't. I was like, oh shit. I don't have any clean clothes. And we're here for 10 days and
Yep.
I'm with a bunch of people I've never met before.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I totally remember this. Anyway, go ahead.
It was also my first time in Connecticut. It was my first time on an island in the wintertime. And I was like, you know what? Like I showed up, I made it. I might smell a little bad. And like
Whoops.
I was like, I don't know what these people think of me, but I'm here and like at least I got here. Little did I know, like some people missed the whole first half of it because of all that blizzard.
Oh, I bet. Totally. Wow.
Yeah. So check.
All right.
That was one of my crazy holiday travel stories.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a connected holiday travel / grad school story. That'll be my first story. I might have more because I think I have a cool one about my grandmom who passed away when I was like 6 or something like that. But anyway, okay. So I actually I worked for a long time before I got my MFA. And the reason I went for my MFA was because the company I work for, they were starting a new program where as long as you were getting a master's degree, it could be any master's degree at all from an accredited college or university, they would pay for it. And I was like, cool, because there's no way in hell I'm getting anybody else to pay for an MFA, right? And I had always wanted to work with Da Chen because I loved Da's writing. Like, I was a huge fan of his writing, still am. And I know, right? Totally. Rest in peace. Da passed away a while ago, and he is like just amazing. And I got to like be in a workshop with him, and I thought, oh my God, I actually could have a chance to actually study with him directly. But I also I applied to a bunch of other MFA programs because like there are different MFAs that are known for different things. And there were several others that had instructors that I would have died to have, worked with as well. So anyway, I had actually like 5 years prior had applied to a bunch of MFAs, and I think I got into like one, but it was so expensive. I was like, I can't mentally justify doing this right now, So fast forward. So I turned the ones that I got into, I turned them down. So fast forward, the company I work for is like, yeah, we'll pay for it. And, you tell us as long as it's an accredited university. So I applied to all these universities, and I got into like I got into like 4 or 5, which blew my mind because, previously, I think I got into like 1 out of like 8 or something. Right. And like this time I got into.
It's not easy to get accepted to an MFA program.
It is not easy to get accepted into not at all. And I mean, I'm talking about some of the universities that turned me down. Like, I actually knew some of the staff. Like, and my if I may say so myself, my because you also have to submit usually like letters of like recognition, and they were actually pretty decent. So I was like, wow, okay, I'm being told to kiss off, and that my writing must really suck. Like, of course, that's how anybody who's a writer in any way, that's exactly where your mind goes, right? So anyway, so one of the universities I got into this time was the MFA we went to, which was Fairfield University. And I was like, so I like went around to the different universities. I was like, is there any way I can come and visit? Right. Because I actually got into a couple, and Michael White, who's the founder, he created the MFA program. He was like, yeah, sure. Why don't you just come to one of our one of the weekend parts of the residency and like hang out with some of the current students and all that. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. Right. So they actually, I stayed at like this little B&B near the school, and I got to, go to some of the workshops, right? And one night I went to this like restaurant and like bar, and there were all these, and this was like the weekend before, I guess officially before like the start of the residency, or something like that. And so there were a bunch of the students that were there, and I recognized them from the classes. So I went up to them and I was like, hey, do you mind if I sit with you? I want to ask you about your experience, at like, how do you like the MFA program, right? Because at this point it was relatively new, right? It had only been around a couple of years. And I don't know if you remember Elizabeth Hiltz. So Elizabeth Hiltz, she had already been published quite a bit, and mostly in nonfiction, right? And she just looks me like dead in the eye, and she goes, you will attend this MFA program. I will see you here next year. And I went, okay. because
it's very Elizabeth Hills.
Yeah, like she has a presence. Like she's one of those people that like you can't go by her without paying attention, right? Like you, and if you try, you're a fool because she's gonna knock you out. I'm just saying. So I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, honestly, my experience was a positive one at the, you know, but that was just like so bizarre, and it was so funny because I literally like was I just kind of like I said thank you. I left the, you know, the split table, and like the next day I told Michael White that I would attend their program. And that's what got me to go was Elizabeth basically threatening my life.
So like one of the funniest things, we should just talk a little bit about the MFA program where we met each other. Okay. So you're on a private island for 10 days. And when the program started, they didn't have amenities like Wi-Fi, right? Mm-hmm. Like we were cut off from the world. Mm-hmm. With like, and you live on the same island as the staff and all the students. It's a Catholic island. The island's owned by the Catholic Church. So like you're staying in like sleeping quarters that kind of look like nun or monks quarters. The faculty stay in nicer buildings on the island, but the island is small. And it's like it's so small you can stand on one end and see the other end, right? Yeah. Like it's like the size of a city block. And it also felt like, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, you're right. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So here was my take from my first residency was like, because I loved it. I had a great experience with my MFA program, but it felt like a specific kind of reality TV show without cameras. So like you're gonna put 50 people who are writers who are really good at like creating conflict within a narrative, and you're going to put them all on an island with limited outside communication for 10 days. 10 days. Like it was every residency I would come back home, and like my roommates, my family, my community, they were like, how was your residency? And I was like, I can't even talk about it. So many things happened that you can't tell one anecdotal story about it that doesn't encapsulate the whole experience.
Well, it's so interwoven. Oh yeah. Well, and you know, like so, like I just mentioned, I went because I was like I really wanted to work with Da Chen, and Michael knew that, and somehow, like every quarter for like the first year, he would assign me to Joan Collins, and I was like, why am I don't understand, like, and it's not like they were the only two instructors, right? There were quite a few instructors. He just kept assigning me to Joan, and one day I like flipped out, and I was like, okay, look. This does not make sense. Why do you do this? Like, I don't have anything against Joan, but like, God, you know, I came here for, you know, to work with specific people as well. And you're not even letting me take like a seminar with them. Like, what the hell, man? Right?
Yeah. I totally gamed the system because you had like the rank which professors you wanted to like work with in the 6 months when you're back in your own house and whatnot. And they would say like, it's based on seniority. So like the people who are close to graduation get their first pick. And I was like, all right, so I'll put my first pick as my third pick. And then I have like more of a chance of getting the person that and it totally worked. It totally.
See, I think everybody I actually wanted to work with, everybody wanted to work with. And that's why it was like, oh, well, they're already gone, you know?
Yeah. So. It was tricky. It was tricky. I really loved who I got to work with. But
mean,
I definitely gamed the system.
I loved everyone I worked with. I just was like, there were just certain people I knew, like I could learn a lot from, and I was just really eager. And then it was weird too, because like I would talk to some of them later, and I'd find out that they had, kind of asked like, well, why am I not working with like me or like someone else, And it was like what you described, right? Like, oh, well, first guys get their first pick and, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like, well, but then like, how's this going to work, kind of thing. So anyway, so I knew it wasn't just me. That was basically it.
Also though, thinking about the travel things, I remember this too when I explained the residency to my roommates before I left for New York to go for the first time. And they're like, all right, so you're flying to New York City, and then you have to take an Amtrak train to this small town in Connecticut, and then you're going to get picked up by somebody and go, and it's all snowy and wonderful. And they're like, this is Hogwarts. Like, you're going
well,
to Hogwarts in the United States.
It was
smaller.
Much smaller. And with people, who were attendees from like 23 to like 60 or 70, like seriously.
Yeah. It's interesting. In my day job now, I work for a nonprofit organization that does a annual 5-day training retreat, and it is very, very intense. But like once you've done 10-day retreats without phone service or Wi-Fi, like you miss so many news cycles that once you get back to the real world and you look at the news, it doesn't make sense. Like, because you couldn't follow any of it. Like, I loved it, but it was a very intense experience. And I like it because of that, but I've developed a muscle for like deep, immersive, high social functioning environments that I don't think I would have developed had it not been for Fairfield.
Oh, hell yeah. No, totally. Mm-hmm. And you kind of learn how to like navigate everyone, like, so you can figure out, like, so that you can connect with people that, because otherwise they just keep putting you in classes with specific people and expect you to like, this is going to be your new best friend. And it's like, but we have nothing in common. There is no, like, this is so bizarre that this is like my roommate, because like in real life, she would probably hate my guts because like I'm full on corporate and she's like anti, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Or like whatever the case may be. Right. And it was like, oh my God. Okay. Well, this is fascinating. Sure.
And it's like, it's an 10 days is long enough where like, if you have to go to a thing that's like a 3-day retreat, you never really like leave yourself behind because you're like, oh, in 3 days, I'll be back home. But like 10 days is a long time where you're like, the first couple days is a lot of like introductions, a lot of interactions, but you still kind of feel like you're like yourself. Right. By like day 5, you're like, no, I'm like here in this community. And then you got 5 more days of that, and then you get thrust back to your real life, and you're like, I was a totally different person in a different community with a different role that I got used to. And now I'm back in my own life.
No, I totally understand that. Oh yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
It was strange. I think it's interesting that we're talking about this because this time of year, this is when we would have these 10-day retreats. Would be a couple of days after Christmas. We'd have New Year's Eve on the island. And then we would come back.
It was awesome. New Year's Eve on the island was amazing. Like that was perfect, period, right?
the best. And people are like, "What are your New Year's Eve plans?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to be on a private island off the coast of Connecticut for New Year's Eve. Actually, I'm good." Like,
Seriously. Yeah. It was, and they had an affiliation with a winery, so every residency, like every meal had like either a happy hour, like, you know, wine with dinner, and it was just, and so let's just say it was quite apropos for a bunch of writers left alone on an island for 10 days.
I wish there would have been camera crews following us, because it would have made for really, really good television. Like, I would watch that show.
Well, and what's hilarious too is, like, fast forward, we would go to like AWP or like go to all these different conferences, and you'd end up like, now you're like buddies with the instructors that you had before, you know, and so like you're hanging out with these people who, you know, like Jackie Machard, who was like this like total sweetheart, and she was another one person. The poor thing got stuck with me a couple of semesters in a row, and like, but like you get tight because, you know, you've already spent, you know, a couple of 10 days, and, you know, during the semester you're all hanging out like, you know, online and like, and all that. So it was just, yeah, it was an amazing, incredible experience. I definitely recommend it. So
100%. I remember Jackie Machard because I was so intimidated, but we had like a couple of really good conversations on the island, and I was like, I think she likes me. And then I would like run away from her, like, ah.
Yeah, I still love Jackie. I totally do.
She's great. She's a real one. Oh man. Okay. This made me think I do have a traditional family-based story about holiday travel, but now I'm thinking about if there's maybe something better.
So growing up, like, we were poor, so we didn't really travel a lot. And if I did travel during the holidays, it was because my father's first wife, my dad paid for my airfares and stuff, but her and my siblings, so his kids from his first marriage, were kind enough to like basically put me up during some of the holidays. So that's the only way that's how I would spend like Christmas in like Santa Ana, or like Thanksgiving, or, you know, but that, you know, usually when I came out to California when I was growing up, it was usually in like the summer, you know. But like when I was little, my mom actually was like Mensa smart. She had like 2 master's degrees, one I think in psychology and another in I want to say social change or something like that. And she was originally like the director of like these different community organizations. And so sometimes in the holidays, because both of her parents were quite a bit older, and her mom had I believe my grandma was a diabetic, and let's just say this is back in the day when people weren't very good at managing their diabetes, unlike now where you can get patches that basically, you know, keep you steady for, you know, forever or whatever, you know, so you don't go into diabetic comas or anything like that. Oh no. Somehow I lost Teehee. So that's not good. So guys, let's see if hopefully he comes back. This looks like he's still here in some way. But somehow he got a little disconnected. So excuse me. Again, let's give him a minute or two. In the meantime, I'll tell you guys about what I did last night and what I've been doing over the last 8-9 weeks. So I had actually, myself and obviously Running Wild and Rise, we were accepted to a program for small businesses to basically get prepped to go for funding. And last night I actually pitched to venture capitalists and bankers, Running Wild and Rise. And they actually sounded really, really interested. So I'm going to be following up with them on like seeing if, because I was basically asking for funding to help increase our marketing and publicity, because in this industry, normally, like if you talk to the big and large houses, 50 to 60% of their actual revenue is spent on marketing and publicity. I'm going to say we spend maybe 10%, something like that, 15%. And it's just because, I mean, we're small and we're bootstrapping it, you know? So it was to see if, you know, we could get funding to help us increase our investment basically in marketing and publicity over the next 5 years. So I was just telling people that while we were, are you okay? Is your internet okay? Like, because you like went bye-bye for a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. I tried to put it in the chat. I had to use the restroom really bad, so I went to go pee.
Oh, no, you're fine. All good. No, you're fine.
I have wireless earbuds, so I heard most of everything.
Oh, okay. Okay, so back to my childhood holiday story. So but my grandparents both lived in, when I was a kid. So my mom was this like director of social change, and she worked at different community centers. And like I actually went to El Centro Comunal Borincano when I was like little, like pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, because she was the director of the community center that sponsored that pre-K and kindergarten group, if that makes sense, right? So anyway, so really that just meant that over the holidays, we would just go to like my grandparents who were out of Florida. And when I was little, I think I must have been like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, something like that. And so we would go and visit, and my cousins and aunt and uncle, they lived with my grandparents for reasons we won't go into, because I don't feel like getting hate mail. So and our grandparents owned a mini mart off of the beach in Florida. I think, if I remember correctly, it was near Fort Lauderdale. So like the front or the back of the house of it was their house, and then the front was the actual mini mart, if that makes sense, right? So I remember like we went to visit over the holidays, and my grandma was like she would just like get all excited whenever she'd see me, right? Like, oh my God, my little Lisa, you know, whatever. And I was just like, oh, okay, you know, sure. And you know, like she was just very protective of me, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Well, I think by the time I was like, I'm going to say maybe 6 or 7, she passed away from complications of diabetes. And in her will, she had it that when we spread her ashes, it had to be my mom, me, my grandfather. Actually, I think that was it, right? So she didn't name my cousins. She didn't name my aunt, right? You know, none of that. So, which at the time I thought was weird, but it was like, okay, well, you know, I don't know. I'm a kid. I don't know any better. So fast forward and we're like, I'm in my like, I want to say I'm like 18, 19 years old, something like that. And I went to Florida to visit my family, and I'm hanging out with my cousins, right? Coley and oh my God, I can't believe I can see her in my head too. Melissa. And out of nowhere, now Coley never talked to me. Like he just acted like I was some kind of disease that he didn't want to be near. And I was like, hey, it's all good because you don't want to be near me, then I don't want to be near you. Like, I don't care. Like, sure. And Melissa and I used to hang out a lot, even if she was like she was the oldest of us. I think I was like 2 or 3 years younger than she was. And we're hanging out, and out of nowhere, Coley goes, Grandma, what you been? Like, just like that. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. And he freaks about how like our Nana, you know, like, you know, I was her favorite and blah, 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 blah. And I just turned to him like, you do realize I lived in New Jersey, right? Like, so she just never saw me. I mean, that was basically the bottom line. That's why she was so happy when she'd see me. It had nothing to do with being a favorite. It had to do with I just wasn't within the vicinity, you know. Which of course brought me down the list. Like I was already like here in his head. So I'm now like below the floor, you know, because he can't stand me so much. And and Melissa was just like I from what I remember, she was pretty high. And so she was just kind of going with it, like while he was like freaking out. So so that was my visiting grandparents over the holidays family reaction story.
There's something to be said to be that relative that lives far away that you don't see that often. It is special. Like, it's totally special. You're like, oh, these are those people. You know, like, I
never see you. Yay. Uh-huh. And then there's a whole nother, like, this is not a family traveling thing, but it was, I'm kind of like, how disowned will I be if I tell this story? Well, all right, screw it. So, and then you can tell your story on, and we'll close out with that. Cool. Okay.
Yep.
So Cole never spoke to me again. I mean, it's not like you spoke to me in the first place, but you know, fine. But Melissa and I, we stayed in touch, and she got married, and her husband both went into the military, and so they traveled around a lot, right? And they got stationed near me at the time I was out of Pennsylvania, close to Philadelphia, and so they were stationed near there. And Melissa was like, "Hey, you know, I have to actually travel. Can you hang out with my husband? I just want to make sure that he's not alone." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. You know, whatever." So he and I go on this like bizarre ass. We were trying to get to Outback Steakhouse. Like, this is no joke, right? And like the car broke down, the tires blew out, AAA wouldn't come. I mean, you name it, right? But it was one of those, like, you work so damn hard just to get to the steakhouse that it's like 9 o'clock at night and you're starving. And like, even the breadsticks taste like magic because you are so freaking hungry, right? I mean, like, you could drink the steak sauce. You're so hungry, right? So, you know, so he and I, we go through this epic adventure. And like, it was absolutely insane. And this is before the days that everybody and their mother had a cell phone, right? People still had, house phones. And so I guess he just kept talking about how much fun we had, because we had a lot of fun. It was still a shit show, but I mean, you make fun where you can. So fast forward, I'm going to say about a year later, all of a sudden they're separated, they're getting divorced. It turned out he had been having like multiple affairs, and he admitted to it, right? I don't know what caused him to just, I don't know if one of them came out and was like, he's mine kind of thing. Like, I don't know. Right. But if I remember correctly, I think he wanted to marry one of his affairs. Right. And and he and I had stayed friends, and obviously I was still friends with my cousin, and he kind of alluded to this stuff, because he one day was talking to me and he was like, yeah, I still remember when I saw Melissa, because they went to high school together and they were on the same school bus. That's how they met. And he was like, she always looks so sad. So that's why, I thought I would go and talk to her. And, and like the first couple of times they went out, it was because he felt he didn't want to see her alone. And I was like, okay, that's not a healthy beginning to a relationship. But I'm not going to say that, because I don't know how things evolved. And this is, again, before they got, we're separated and everything. So anyway, so turns out he had multiple affairs, and, they were getting a divorce and all this stuff. So all of a sudden, she calls me and is like, admit it. You were fucking my husband. And I'm like, oh my God, no. No, that was not me. And I could tell from like the way she was talking, like she was clearly high. I mean, high off her ass high, right? And I'm like, Melissa, you need to go and you need to chill out and you need to calm down. But I can tell you right now, like he and I, nothing. There was, we literally hung out that one night, and we talked a couple of times, maybe emailed a couple of times beyond that, but that's it. Like there's nothing going on. And I would like, and this went on, by the way, Teehee, this happened like 5 times. She would get high off her ass, and then I would have to, like, this was not me, to the point where I couldn't accept her phone calls anymore, because she would get so like wickedly upset. And I have not heard from her since then, nor have I heard from him, which is fine, by the way. I'd rather don't call me if this is what the conversation's going to be.
It's like, that is so fascinating, because it's like, in some ways, it's almost a flex of like, oh, you thought I was the type of person that could just get it from anyone, including your husband. Like, you're like, that's almost a compliment, but like delivered in a really bad way.
Part of me thinks that, I don't know if maybe they got into a fight at one point and she accused him of it, and he just went, yeah, sure, fine. Like, you know what I mean? And so it became one of those like, admit to it, and I'm like, baby, there is nothing to admit to. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
It is so weird when those things happen. I remember I was an undergrad in college, and there was a couple that was together, had been together for years, and they broke up, and one part of the couple was like, well, I always assumed that since you're single and now I'm single, that the two, and I was like, no, I never thought that. Never crossed my mind. That is a whole narrative that got built without my input.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's my favorite is, you fast forward like 10 years or 15 years after you work with somebody and they're like, I always loved you. I always thought you were amazing or whatever. And it's like, well, you could have told me then. Like I was actually single then. I'm not single. No, 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 no.
It's man. Also, so like a friend of mine a couple of years ago was like weirdly accused. She had a friend who was in a relationship and it broke up because of infidelity. And so then that friend was questioning every friend of her former partner of like any female friend. Oh, they suddenly must have like had something going on. And so my friend was like, one, I'm flattered that you think I'm a threat to you in this way, but two, no, like this is not like this was never going to happen. It never did happen. There's no situation under the sun. Like,
and then like the super catty part of me, depending on the situation or whatever, is thinks like there are like all these other people that I find insanely attractive. That if you were going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, who would I even consider? This isn't it. Like it would be like go over here. This is not. Nope. No. Well, yeah. And two, I mean, in all honesty, though, too, a lot of it depends on people's relationships because you can have an open relationship. And then you have rules around how it works, right? And as long as you're both cool with it, and because I've known plenty of couples that had something like that and lasted a very long time, if not indefinitely, as far as I know, right? But it's that both to be in agreement, So anyway, sorry.
But the similar thing that I've had is like somebody got out of a years-long relationship was like, I naturally suspected we would get together. And I'm like, I'm not even sure I know your name. Like we're not close. Like,
this is not a thing. I can promise you, this is not a thing.
Yes. I've had a couple of beers, but also I used to be messy. Maybe not as messy anymore. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not as messy anymore, and I'm happy with that.
I'm like, you better not be. The last time I checked, you had a boyfriend, and I'm just saying.
I still have the same boyfriend. It's going great. So I'm doing good. Yeah, I mean, and this is about to be his busy season because it starts with like the holidays and then all the tourists come and everything. So, but it's 6 months. 6 months.
Wow, that's a long time. Like no joke.
Yeah, especially for me. I'm not often in relationships.
I think it's awesome. So, and real fast guys, don't forget that we have a writer's retreat. What's our deadline's what, January 15th? Is that right? Or am I wrong?
Yes. It might be January 30th. Or maybe we should change it to January 30th because we will have more time to recruit. But we are doing a writer's retreat. It's in Puerto Vallarta. It's going to be in June. I actually changed so many things around my calendar so that this will happen. Like, it's happening.
You get to submit 20 pages of whatever you want, and then you'll be in a workshop with it. I'd say 6 to 8 other writers, and you'll get either me, Teehee, or Cody Cisco, who's one of our incredible acquisition editors and editors. And during the day, we'll have the workshops. Maybe we'll have some seminars on different aspects of writing. And then at night, we're going to go party in Puerto Vallarta. I'm just putting it out there. And all this is going down in an incredible, incredible, incredible spa. We have reserved the entire spa, guys. So it is.
Yes.
It's
beautiful. I've been there. The view is amazing. The hot tubs are amazing.
And we will have, so because we are basically running the whole place, you'll have access to everything. You're going to get all this for $9.99, which is incredible, right? And I mean, you do pay for your airfare and you'll pay for your food, but think again, we're in Puerto Vallarta. We're in the middle of, you know, yeah, it's super cheap. So
the food is cheap.
We are going to have an incredible time. If you're interested, just go. I'd have to find the link again, but please feel free. We've already got like a half dozen people who are signed up for it or who have definitively shown interest in it. And so far, honestly, the people who are into going are really kick-ass. I mean, like, they are huge writers in and of their own right. So
heck yeah, and space is limited. So if you are listening to this, if you made it this far, just go ahead and apply. We'll put it up on the socials. I'll put it up. Lisa will put it up. It'll be easy to see. We have an Eventbrite. And yeah, all you need is 20 pages. We'll have workshop groups. It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited for it. This time between when I have to go back to work again in the new year, I'm going to do some outreach, some promotion on social media, and make sure we just like get it out there a little bit more. I did not think so I love my job. I started a new job. We only work a 4-day work week. But what that's turning into is not 8 hours a day, 4 days a week, but like 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. So like I sleep in on Fridays. Friday is like a recovery day. Saturday is an errand day. And then Sunday is my writing day.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's I'm getting used to it though. I'm getting used to it. It would have been easier if I didn't have 9 months of not having to work. That spoiled the crap out of me. Yeah. But also, I want everyone to experience 9 months of not having to work to support yourself and just live in a tropical environment. It would change your life. Like,
I bet.
I am a different person. I think about my career in such a different way. Like, because it's not like because I'm a writer, I'm an author, you know, and like that is its own career track for me. But I also work in like progressive political nonprofit space. And like I had a trajectory that I wanted, and then I got a little bit of a taste of what retirement could look like. And now my trajectory is retirement. It's not necessarily like, oh, I want to pass this bill or like I want to achieve this thing. I'm like, I want to be able to retire.
I know so many people that echo that. Oh yeah.
It is. Yes, it is. What do you call that? Not the holy grail, but like the finish line. It is the finish line that we're going for. Okay. So my last holiday travel story. I think I've told this story maybe because we've been doing this series for a couple of years now. But okay, so I have to tell you. So I grew up in Iowa, which is in the middle of the country. And so most of my family is throughout the Midwest. So while my family wasn't super religious, my aunt, who is very close to my mom, they're sisters, my aunt who lived in Missouri is Jehovah's Witness. They don't celebrate holidays. And so growing up, we would always drive down to Missouri to hang out with my aunt. and her husband and her kids and like all of us kids and everything. And we're around similar ages. Yeah, and we just got used to spending holiday time together. There was never any holiday decorations. There wasn't like any Christmas or Thanksgiving rituals. It was just time being spent together without any kind of holiday. Like I didn't really understand Christmas until like first or second grade, hearing other kids tell me what Christmas was supposed to be, because like I didn't grow up with Christmas. Like we were like, it's that time of the year we go visit our family in Missouri, and they didn't have Christmas anything. So like I just didn't know. Yeah, I've been somewhat of a Scrooge most of my life because I don't like Christmas. I like the part about families spending time together. I don't like the shopping. I don't like the Black Friday, the like stressing out about getting a gift, stressing out about buying a tree, decorating the tree. Like, no, I don't like any of that stuff. And it's interesting, my family now, because a lot of my brothers and sisters have kids, they dip more into the traditional Christmas, like way more than we ever did as children. So when I was like a preteen, we're in Iowa, my mom got a really good job at a factory. So we lived in a pretty affluent neighborhood in our small town. And like Thanksgiving comes and passes, all the Christmas decorations go up all over the neighborhood. And the neighbors start knocking on our door. And they're like, oh, we noticed you don't have any Christmas decorations. This is a majority white neighborhood, and we are a brown family. And they're like, we noticed you don't have any Christmas decorations. Are you not Christian? And my mom was like, no, we're Christian. We're fine. Whatever. Shuts the door. But then they would come back. They would keep knocking. And so they kept saying like, oh, can you not afford Christmas decorations? Because we can buy some for you so that your house is decorated just like every other house in the neighborhood. And my mom was like, yeah, they think they're being nice. They're like in their Hallmark movie channel moment of like, this is them being generous and like not at all listening or understanding us. My mom was like, one year, my mom was like, no, well, we never took Christmas decorations from strangers anyway. My mom was like, no, we don't celebrate Christmas. And they're like, oh, because you're Muslim. And she's like, no, we're not. We just don't choose to celebrate this holiday. So we're not going to decorate our house in Christmas decorations. We'll actually be out of town and we'll come back in the new year. So my mom messed up one year and told all of our neighbors that we were going out of town. So of course we drive down to Missouri to spend the holidays with our family who are Jehovah's Witnesses. So we don't celebrate the holiday and we have a great time. And then we come back and it's like an 8-hour drive that we're doing with like the very minimal stops, right? Because my mom has to get back to work. We have to get back to school. We pull into the neighborhood and our house is just like lit up almost in our heads like Las Vegas neon lights, because like lights on our house is not something we never celebrated Christmas, right? Like, so even the smallest amount is too much for us. But the whole neighborhood has decked out our entire house with Christmas lights all over the house, Christmas decorations in the front yard as we're pulling in from this 8-hour trip. And my mom, who's a very composed woman, loses it. She gets out and she's just cursing all over and all the neighbors came out in their like Hallmark mind. They're like, look what we did for you. My mom's just grabbing things, ripping them, throwing them down.
Wow.
Yelling and screaming at all these neighbors, like, what on earth did you do? Why would you do this? We told you we didn't want this. Like, and she's ripping them all down. And like, we start ripping them down as kids because like we we were the Grinch on the block. Like we didn't like Christmas. We were like, so then they're like, okay. The neighbors, they're like, okay. We see we've offended you.
Oh my. Uh-oh.
So they're like, we'll just politely ask for our decorations back. And my mom was like, fuck no.
Wow.
Took all of them. The ones that were safe to burn, we burned that day in our driveway. Like the papers. We burnt, and they were like, we went out and bought those specifically for y'all. If you're not going to use them, just give them back. My mom was like, no.
Wow.
No, they're going to the fire.
Wow. Oh my God. Wow.
Because she was like, when we said it, we specifically said, we don't want Christmas decorations. We don't celebrate Christmas. We're not going to be here. Mm-hmm. So we were like, at the very least, if you were going to decorate our house behind our backs, take it down before we get back.
But that defeats the purpose in their minds, right? Like,
yeah. And they really thought they were going to deliver some holiday special moment.
Right? Totally. Like, hello, Hallmark card. Like, oh yeah, that was totally it. Oh, wow. It's funny because that is like my father was an atheist, like a practicing, if there was such a thing, atheist, right? And he was very open about the fact that he grew up very Catholic. And when his mom died, when he was like 22 or 23, he went to church one day and went, this is all bullshit. There is no goddamn God. And literally just left that church and never came back, right? But he still practiced. We still did Christmas. We still did like Thanksgiving and stuff, but the focus was on family and community and like looking out for each other and that, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't on the more religious aspects. So, and like if I wanted to go to church, he was like, you know, that's your prerogative. And the same with my mom, but it's just interesting that it's that polar opposite perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And like how interesting it is that like anyone can opt out of holidays. There's like nothing wrong with that. Because it's not like my mom was not Christian. My mom was Christian. She still is kind of Christian. Mm-hmm. She's just anti-holidays because that's not what she's used to. And like growing up for me, like I've gotten into holidays as an adult, but as a kid, I was really anti-holiday because we didn't do anything for holidays.
Right.
You just don't know. You're like,
right. Yeah. And like when I was growing up, like we had no money. I think when my dad could actually get a credit card, the only one he could get was JCPenney's because that was the only credit card that would actually issue a card to him. So there were years that Christmas meant you go to JCPenney and you hit up clearance rack, right? Like that's how you got, and it meant something just because like that's when you actually got clothes, or that's when you actually got like, something for your house, right? Because back then JCPenney had a little bit of everything, but that's the only reason like why that was significant was because like, hey, if you're going to get anything other than, like the Food Mart eggs and iceberg lettuce to eat on, and like, my dad weighed these 5-pound bags of ground meat that was pretty much all gristle. It was the most disgusting stuff you've ever seen in your life. But he was so proud of himself for being able to get it that like I was like, I can't do this. It's so disgusting. Like just, give me Give me like oatmeal. I'll live off of oatmeal. It's okay. I don't need protein. And he's like, no, you need protein. You're a growing child. And I was like, no, I really don't. I really don't need protein. I think I'm okay.
Oh my God. I have one last funny Christmas story.
Do it.
So at one point before I'm in high school, my family decides we're going to do Christmas. And we're going to do the traditional Christmas this time. So we went out, we got a tree, we brought it back, we put it in the living room. The tree is too big. It takes up too much of the living room. It doesn't hit the ceiling, but it's like a foot below the ceiling.
Okay,
and we're like, this is too big. And so we go back, we get another tree. It's still how we feel is too big. So we're like, let's get like a plastic tree. So then we go to the mall, we get a tree. We had to take the other one back. And we're like, we want a tree. So we get like a 4-foot plastic tree and bring it back home, set it up. And we're like, this tree is too big. And so we take it back.
Okay.
And the store clerk people are like, what do you mean the tree is too big? We're like, the tree just takes up a lot of space in the living room. And they're like, that's what a Christmas tree should do. And we're like, no, we don't like that. So we get a 2-foot plastic tree.
Oh my God.
And then we don't like it anywhere in the living room. So we decide the place to put it is behind the television. Because once you put all the lights on it and plug it in, like the lights scatter all over the walls. So it's like having a Christmas tree, except for you don't have to see it.
I'm sorry. That's
and
hilarious.
We are so proud of this. Like, I invite my friends home after school, and I'm like, we forgot our first Christmas tree. And they come in the living room, they're like, where is it? And we're like, it's behind the television. And they're like, you all fundamentally don't know what you're doing.
They're like, politely speaking, what are you doing?
Exactly. They're like, Christmas trees are meant to be seen. And we're like, are they?
Are they really? Maybe
we're like, tomato. So, but the one big thing my mom promised is that we were going to get a present. And it was a present that all of us siblings could share. Like, she's buying one present, but it's a present for the whole family.
Oh, okay.
And so we're like, all right, we got our Christmas tree that's behind the television, that's basically invisible, but Christmas morning, we're going to have a present. And Christmas morning shows up. My mom was like, I'm really sorry. Christmas is canceled. And we're like, okay, yeah.
Oh my God.
We're not even upset because we don't really expect anything. Right. Because we didn't grow up with getting Christmas. So we're like, okay, like we're still going to eat breakfast though, right? Like blah, blah, blah. So cut to a couple months later, February, we're just like hanging out. It's a weekend, and my mom comes down the stairs with this like brand new Sega Genesis. And she's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm so sick and addicted to this Tetris game. Take this away from me, children. And we're like, what? What is the Sega Genesis Council? Our mom bought us a Sega Genesis, and she wanted to make sure it worked. So she hooked it up to the TV in her bedroom, and then she started playing Tetris. And then she got hooked on Tetris.
And that's why Christmas was
to the point where she canceled Christmas for her own children.
Oh my God, that is awesome.
So she can keep playing Tetris.
Wow.
Until she finally had enough and gave it to us.
All right, that's just not right. That is so not right. It's so not right. It's fabulous.
It's one of my favorite Christmas memories.
Were you all like, okay?
We were so excited to get a Sega Genesis. We didn't care.
Ah, well, There you go.
It's not every day you get a Sega Genesis. We're like, hey.
Hey, one time. Close enough.
And mom wanted nothing to do with video games ever again. So
there you go.
We're like, Mortal Kombat. She's like, whatever.
I don't care. I don't want to see it. Oh my God, that's awesome. All right. Well, with that then, we'll close out the Storytellers Happy Hour. As always, TV, you and I, man, we always have a freaking blast. Anyone who's watching, I hope you enjoyed this. Yes, we're both bizarre. Yes, we've earned the reputation of being crazy. It's all good. We know it. We don't care. So with that,
it's better over here anyway.
Well, you know. Have a phenomenal holiday season. Wishing everybody absolutely the best, and we will see you in the new year. So with that, bye guys.